Today, we are talking about the basics of cloud computing. Hi, Dominik. Welcome to the Experts. How are you?
Hey, I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Good. Very happy to have you with us today. Would you like to give us a short introduction about yourself?
Sure. So I joined Orange last year in my role as cloud strategist in Germany, meaning I support our customers on every stage on their cloud journey. So we see, for example, that some have just started to consolidate their shadow IT and are looking for a holistic strategy. Others already have the majority of their workloads in the cloud and are now working on a networking solution, for example, between multiple environments or optimizing their cost management, for example. And that's where we step in with cloud consulting and other services. My background is in business informatics with a clear focus on how digital technologies can enable business innovation. And I started my career as a solution architect for data center hardware, then built a global innovation lab with a variety of cutting edge technology use cases. And these experiences really helped me a lot in my day-to-day customer engagements.
That sounds very interesting. I believe people will learn a lot from you today. And so you're an expert in cloud technology. And my question is, what does it mean to companies to move into the cloud and to adopt like a cloud first strategy and adopting more cloud for their business operations?
Yeah, good question. Well, as you know, nowadays IT is clearly the backbone of our digital society. If we see businesses as a living organism, data is the blood, networks are the veins, and data centers are the pumping heart for sure. And in order to consume, store, and process data, we will always require that pumping heart. Yeah. But by adopting cloud technology, what's changing is actually the way of sourcing it. So instead of owning and operating huge data centers with an iceberg of an TCO, modern companies tend to source their IT infrastructure from a cloud provider. That means that a company can get rid of physical assets like the buildings and the hardware, which is operated by cloud providers on a large scale anyway. So that's why they are called hyperscalers, obviously. And so with that change, you shift from a CAPEX to an OPEX model, from a financing perspective, and you don't need to take care about things like energy consumption, physical security, or maintenance at all, for example.
Yes. I think important for the audience to know, maybe for some people that are not affine with these concepts, CAPEX means capital expenditure, and that means you pay everything up front when you want to build something in a company. OPEX means you don't pay everything up front. Someone else pays for you, and then you just pay on a monthly, yearly basis, and you don't have to have all the money ready for that. And then you can diversify better your investments. And as well, another term that is interesting to know for people is the TCO. This is a very important concept in general, but especially for cloud, and is the total cost of ownership. And it means you have to know, like, it's not only about maybe the upfront cost you have, it's also about the running cost and the maintenance costs. This is very important to consider in general when doing whatever investment for a company, and for cloud is an area where it's very easy to calculate.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, so when I mentioned the iceberg of a TCO, I really mentioned that example because an iceberg usually has a very small top, on the surface, which means that there are obvious costs like the licenses and the hardware and that stuff. Yeah, but then there is also a huge part below the surface, which means that there are also a lot of operating costs for the data center, meaning the building. Also like the rent for the building, then also the people who take care of the physical security, then the physical security equipment and all that stuff, that you need to take care of besides the energy consumption, for example, for a data center. And this is also some stuff that you have to consider in your total cost of ownership. And therefore, it makes a huge difference when you just compare the, let's say, top of the iceberg.
Yes, and also I guess it's very difficult today to have the right skilled labor for your own data centers. It's much easier to rely on the companies that already have the access to the best pool of people for upgrading all the systems for you. And the other question is, okay, what are the benefits for a company to adopt a cloud strategy?
Yeah, A good question. So really to boil it down, from my view, cloud technology can enable to optimize and to innovate. I mean, there are a lot of different detailed examples, but first of all, what can you optimize with cloud? That's for sure the global reach. So the big hyperscalers, they have their footprint in almost every country in the world. So you can really bring your services very close to your users with a very low latency. Then it's the availability. Yeah, because with a few clicks, you can duplicate your workloads and your data across multiple regions to ensure business continuity. Then you can also optimize your security. So as you just need to take care of your data and your applications, you can avoid lots of mistakes and breaches on the lower levels of the infrastructure because you don't have to take care of it. The cloud provider takes care of it. Yeah? In that regard, I can also recommend to have a look into the shared responsibility model that a lot of cloud providers are sharing. Then you can also optimize the performance. So in the cloud, you have access to seemingly endless resources and scale with almost no limitations in performance. Then you can also optimize a cost, which is a very important point for a lot of companies because you have no more high upfront investments. We already talked about that. Yeah, you just pay for what you really use, and you can even go for specific saving plans in the cloud, like reserved instances and all that stuff. Yeah? And my personal favorite is clearly the sustainability topic because it's a very highly relevant topic for every company nowadays. And with cloud, you can tremendously reduce your power consumption. Yeah, we also talked about that from a data center perspective. And the good thing is that the hyperscalers mostly use renewable energies already as of today. Yeah. And so we now talked about the optimization features, yeah, but the question is also what's now even more interesting, yeah, how can you actually innovate with cloud? And on the one hand, companies can improve their agility and the time to market. Means that by improving to a cloud native environment, you can make use of state-of-the-art tools and techniques for software development, for deployment, and for operation. Like, for example, containers, microservices, serverless functions, infrastructure as code, or CI/CD, which means continuous integration and continuous delivery. So these tools and techniques, they can tremendously accelerate the time to market and therefore the time to create, to upload, and to deploy applications and also improve the quality of the code. Yeah. And instead of going through cumbersome hardware ordering procedures for a new service in the cloud, a new container or a new VM is basically just an API call away. Yeah. And what's most appealing, in my opinion, about cloud services is the fact that companies get instant access to a huge variety of cutting-edge technologies. That makes it actually very, very easy to work on new and innovative digital products and services. And some of these cutting-edge technologies are, for example, IoT platforms, so for the Internet of Things, to easily connect and to manage IoT devices. Then also artificial intelligence and machine learning. So you can use existing code to build your own intelligent software. And that includes, for example, image recognition, video recognition, speech recognition, text extraction. For example, you can also build chatbots in the cloud where the code is already existing. You can also use the code for recommendations engines, for example. But you can also access services around blockchain, around 5G, around satellite data. So everything that is really like a hot topic right now. And some cloud providers even provide the access to real quantum computers. What a time to be alive. So with cloud, you can really bring your ideas to reality.
Okay. And for a company that wants to start knowing what is their potential in the cloud or what savings they can get or what new business they can develop, how should they start in the cloud adoption journey?
Yeah. That's a good question. And indeed, there are a lot of things that you have to have in mind. So that's why we also usually work with our customers quite extensively on a migration strategy beforehand, to make sure to avoid common pitfalls. And the most important thing to consider is, in our view, that cloud adoption is not an end in itself. So it's always about the business goals and the business requirements. And in order to make full use of the benefits that I mentioned earlier. If you have defined a clear business IT alignment, so really aligning the business goals with the IT, you can much better answer the questions about topics like the type of infrastructure, so the consideration between public cloud, private cloud, hybrid cloud, or even multi-cloud environments. You can also better answer the question of the level of responsibility, so be it infrastructure as a service, platform as a service, or even software as a service. So you are sourcing the whole application from the cloud. But then you can also much better answer the question of the application migration strategy. So you maybe already heard of the 5R strategy. Otherwise, I can really also highly recommend to have a look into that. So there's a, let's say, differentiation of how to migrate applications. And you can do that by rehosting, replatforming, refactoring, retiring, and retaining. And usually we do, so Orange does an application assessment in order to evaluate the applications from a TCO perspective, from a technology perspective. We interview all the stakeholders of the applications in order to make sure that the application gets the right migration strategy at the end. And then also, you also have to have in mind a more holistic view, meaning you need to look into the governance, into the target operating model. You have to have a look onto the security for sure, but also the networking. So how do the applications communicate with each other? How does the data flow? And how does, for example, also the different cloud environments communicate with each other? And for sure also the cloud adoption is usually an organizational transformation. So it's also about the culture, about the resources, about the people. And that's also something that is really important. You can also, for example, have a look into cloud centers of excellence and all that stuff.
Yeah, so that's very important. At the end, it's about the people. Technology cannot change if people don't support the adoption of that technology. So, I mean, it was a very interesting introduction. Thank you very much. Also for the audience, please give us your feedback in the comments, or if you want to get in touch with Dominik, we will put his LinkedIn profile in the description, and then you can talk to him directly for whatever topic you like to exchange with him with. And before finishing, Dominik, I believe there are also a couple of other topics we would like to cover in further episodes, right?
Absolutely, yeah. So there are obviously a lot of trends currently floating around in the cloud universe. But to keep it short and crisp, I'm currently focusing on the 3 ops topics. So first of all, FinOps, to continuously optimize the cloud spend. Then DevOps, which is a more cultural approach to bring development and operations closer together. And also AI Ops, which means using machine learning and big data to automate the IT operations, and which makes it all very efficient.
Good. Thank you very much, Dominik. Looking forward to further episodes.
Absolutely. Thanks, Miguel.
Ciao.
Bye.